Bates turned also. "Oh, this is young Holt. His father farms land about a couple miles from here. He is one of Stephanie's lovers, and I should imagine about the best of the lot. But he does not appear to be a favorite. From what I hear, someone else must have made the running on the sly. Ever since the robbery, I'm told the young woman has given him the cold shoulder." As the young man came nearer in his buggy, he slackened pace, and Loveday could not but admire his frank, honest expression of countenance. "Room for one. Can I give you a lift?" he said, as he came alongside of them. And to the ineffable disgust of Bates, who had counted upon at least an hour's confidential talk with her, Miss Brooke accepted the young farmer's offer, and mounted beside him in his buggy. As they went swiftly along the country road, Loveday explained to the young man that her destination was Craigen Court, and that, as she was a stranger to the place, she must trust to him to put her down at the nearest point to it that he would pass. At the mention of Craigen Court his face clouded. "They're in trouble there, and their trouble has brought trouble on others," he said, a little bitterly. "I know," said Loveday sympathetically. "It is often so. In such circumstances as these, suspicion frequently fastens on an entirely innocent person." "That's it! That's it!" he cried excitedly. "If you go into that house, you'll hear all sorts of wicked things said of her, and see everything setting in dead against her, but she's innocent. I swear to you she is as innocent as you or I are." His voice rang out above the clatter of his horse's hoofs. He seemed to forget that he had mentioned no name, and that Loveday, as a stranger, might be at a loss to know to whom he referred. "Who is guilty, heaven only knows," he went on, after a moment's pause. "It isn't for me to give an ill name to anyone in that house, but I only say she is innocent, and that I'll stake my life on it." "She is a lucky girl to have found one to believe in her, and to trust her as you do," said Loveday, even more sympathetically than before. "Is she? I wish she'd take advantage of her luck then," he answered bitterly. "Most girls in her position would be glad to have a man to stand by them through thick and thin, but not she. Ever since the night of that accursed robbery she has refused to see me, won't answer my letters, won't even send me a message, and, great heavens, I'd marry her tomorrow if I had the chance, and dare the world to say a word against her." He whipped up his pony. The hedges seemed to fly on either side of them, and before Loveday realized that half her drive was over, he had drawn rein and was helping her to alight at the servants' entrance to Craigen Court. "You'll tell her what I've said to you if you get the opportunity, and beg her to see me, if only for 5 minutes," he petitioned before he remounted his buggy. And Loveday, as she thanked the young man for his kind attention, promised to make an opportunity to give his message to the girl. Mrs. Williams, the housekeeper, welcomed Loveday in the servants' hall, and then took her to her own room to pull off her wraps. Mrs. Williams was the widow of a London tradesman, and a little beyond the average housekeeper in speech and manner. She was a genial, pleasant woman, who readily entered into conversation with Loveday. Tea was brought in, and each seemed to feel at home with the other. Loveday, in the course of this easy, pleasant talk, elicited from her the whole history of the events of the day of the robbery, the number and names of the guests who sat down to dinner that night, together with some other apparently trivial details. The housekeeper made no attempt to disguise the painful position in which she and every one of the servants of the house felt themselves to be in at the present moment. "We are none of us at our ease with each other now," she said, as she poured out hot tea for Loveday and piled up a blazing fire. "Everyone fancies that everyone else is suspecting him or her, and trying to rake up past words or deeds to bring in as evidence. The whole house seems under a cloud. And at this time of year, too, just when everything as a rule is at its merriest." And here she gave a doleful glance to the big bunch of holly and mistletoe hanging from the ceiling. "I suppose you are generally very merry downstairs at Christmas time," said Loveday. "Servants' balls, theatricals, and all that sort of thing?" "I should think we were! When I think of this time last year, and the fun we all had, I can scarcely believe it is the same house. Our ball always follows my lady's ball, and we have permission to ask our friends to it, and we keep it up as late as ever we please. We begin our evening with a concert and recitations in character, then we have a supper, and then we dance right on till morning. But this year—" She broke off, giving a long, melancholy shake of her head that spoke volumes. "I suppose," said Loveday, "some of your friends are very clever as musicians or reciters?" "Very clever indeed. Sir George and my lady are always present during the early part of the evening, and I should like you to have seen Sir George last year laughing fit to kill himself at Harry Emmett dressed in prison dress with a bit of oakum in his hand reciting the 'Noble Convict.' Sir George said if the young man had gone on the stage he would have been bound to make his fortune." "Half a cup, please," said Loveday, presenting her cup. "Who was this Harry Emmett, then? A sweetheart of one of the maids?" "Oh, he would flirt with them all, but he was sweetheart to none. He was footman to Colonel James, who was a great friend of Sir George's, and Harry was constantly backwards and forwards bringing messages from his master. His father, I think, drove a cab in London, and Harry for a time did so also. Then he took it into his head to be a gentleman's servant, and great satisfaction he gave as such. He was always such a bright, handsome young fellow, and so full of fun, that everyone liked him. But I shall tire you with all this, and you, of course, want to talk about something so different." And the housekeeper sighed again, as the thought of the dreadful robbery entered her brain once more. "Not at all. I am greatly interested in you and your festivities. Is Emmett still in the neighborhood? I should amazingly like to hear him recite myself." "I am sorry to say he left Colonel James about 6 months ago. We all missed him very much at first. He was a good, kind-hearted young man, and I remember he told me he was going away to look after his dear old grandmother, who had a sweet-stuff shop somewhere or other, but where I can't remember." Loveday was leaning back in her chair now, with eyelids drooped so low that she literally looked out through slits instead of eyes. Suddenly and abruptly she changed the conversation. "When will it be convenient for me to see Lady Cathrow's dressing room?" she asked. The housekeeper looked at her watch. "Now, at once," she answered. "It's 4:45 now, and my lady sometimes goes up to her room to rest for half an hour before she dresses for dinner." "Is Stephanie still in attendance on Lady Cathrow?" Miss Brooke asked as she followed the housekeeper up the back stairs to the bedroom floor. "Yes. Sir George and my lady have been goodness itself to us through this trying time, and they say we are all innocent till we are proved guilty, and will have it that none of our duties are to be in any way altered." "Stephanie is scarcely fit to perform hers, I should imagine." "Scarcely. She was in hysterics nearly from morning till night for the first 2 or 3 days after the detectives came down, but now she has grown sullen, eats nothing, and never speaks a word to any of us, except when she is obliged. This is my lady's dressing room. Walk in, please." Loveday entered a large, luxuriously furnished room, and naturally made her way straight to the chief point of attraction in it, the iron safe fitted into the wall that separated the dressing room from the bedroom. It was a safe of the ordinary description, fitted with a strong iron door and Chubb lock. And across this door was written with chalk, in characters that seemed defiant in their size and boldness, the words, "To be let unfurnished." Loveday spent about 5 minutes in front of the safe, all her attention concentrated upon the big, bold writing. She took from her pocketbook a narrow strip of tracing paper and compared the writing on it, letter by letter, with that on the safe door. This done, she turned to Mrs. Williams and professed herself ready to follow her to the room below. Mrs. Williams looked surprised. Her opinion of Miss Brooke's professional capabilities suffered considerable diminution. The gentleman